This week on Dance of Joy, we talk about chewing flavored wax, our wish for a Balki and Larry duet album, and lessons about love and term papers. All that and more as we watch Season 2, Episode 7 of our favorite 80s hit sitcom, Perfect Strangers. Hello and welcome to Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers rewatch podcast. My name is Imran, one of your hosts. Joining me, my co-host and my sister, Sophia. How are you?
Hello, hello. I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
You're doing great now, but you might need a box of tissues and some comfort ice cream by the end of this. So we might be wrecks.
I'm ready.
It's because we are up to Season 2, Episode 7 of Perfect Strangers. This episode is titled Falling in Love is...
Oh, no. ... And the TV guide description for this episode reads, Larry suspects that the classmate Balki has fallen for is using him for help with her homework.
Oh, boy. So the title has the three dots. What's that called? You're the writer. What is that?
Ellipses.
And what does that usually denote?
It denotes that there's something else coming.
The thought has not been completed.
The thought is not complete.
All right, good. I just wanted to make sure you knew what that was.
So what are they telling us here? Falling in love is what? We're about to find out.
We're going to find out. Perfect Strangers, of course, starring Bronson Pinchot and Marklyn Baker. This episode airing November 12th, 1986.
Act 1, we open again at everyone's favorite weirdo store, Ritz discount. Larry is helping a woman, a very pretty woman. He smiles at her. He says, "Hi, is there anything I can do for you?" She gives him an up and down scan, and then she goes, "No, I don't think so," with total attitude and walks away. Very rude.
Wait, can we pause here? Was Larry flirting or was he just being helpful? What do you think?
I think it's a bit of both.
And secondly, this woman, she's okay. She's not like bombshell attractive.
I know.
Like,
what gives her the right to be so rude?
There's no reason she should have this attitude, lady. He just wanted to know if you needed some help.
And why even include this? I think it's just like a contrast to what's about to happen.
It's kind of setting up the counter theme. And also, Larry's wearing red, 100% bright red.
Wet
vest, a sweater vest with a red
colored shirt.
Oh, it's bright red. You can't not notice him. When suddenly Balki runs in all excited. He says, "Today is the greatest day of his life. Today I am in love," Balki proclaims.
Aww.
Larry goes, "You fell in love during your lunch break? Where is this restaurant?" Which is a pretty funny line. Balki explains he had lunch with one Carol Mosley.
Carol Mosley, which immediately made me think of Carol Mosley Braun, who is very different from this character.
Yes, that's a different Carol Mosley.
Braun, of course, an Illinois senator. At the time of this taping, she was a member of the Illinois House of Representatives. Coincidence? Who knows? That's just what came to my mind.
That's so funny that because I totally forgot about Carol Mosley Braun until you're like, Carol Mosley Braun. I was like, oh yeah, I thought that name sounded.
She was like a big political figure from Chicago, from Illinois.
This is not Carol Mosley Braun. This is Carol Mosley, who is in his American history class.
Okay.
She sits across the room from him, and Balki has been pining for her from afar. And then he says, "But I notice her because she's a poor, shy little creature huddled in the corner. But last night the teacher put us together, and she began to open up like a little flower." Oh, boy.
Oh, sweet, sweet Balki is falling in love. So they met for lunch to discuss a term paper they have to write, and Balki says she confessed to me that she has had secret feeling for me, too, and it's just like the great Jiminy Cricket said. And then Balki launches into this croony song, Young at Heart. He starts singing, "Fairy tales
and come true.
It could happen to you." And Larry is like, "That's Frank Sinatra." And he corrects him. He said, "I think Jiminy Cricket said..." And then Larry starts singing "When You Wish Upon a Star," and Balki joins in. I'm not going to sing it because I can't do it justice, but they Balki joins in and they do a perfect harmony, and it's this lovely duet moment. And there's a shopper in the background who is very much enjoying the performance.
So I remember a couple episodes ago, you had mentioned Marklin Baker and Bronson Pinchot are both like good singers, and it happens again the next episode. But in this one, really, the harmonies when they sing together, and it's really Marklin Baker can hit those high notes for these harmonies. It was so sweet and perfect, and the guy in the background's hilarious, and he walks up and he goes, "Can I pay for this before the next chorus?" This background actor, apparently this guy is the most underutilized guest spot on the show. This guy's name was Dave Ketchum. He was the customer in this episode. He's a great character actor. Dave Ketchum, probably best known to TV fans as Agent 13 and Get Smart.
I thought he looked familiar.
Do you remember Agent 13's gag in Get Smart?
Yeah, he used to be hidden in the most unusual and uncomfortable places.
Maxwell Smart had to find him like in the garbage can or in the wall to get like the mission. That was Dave Ketchum. He also had been many guest appearances on Happy Days, which there is a Happy Days reference later in this episode.
Interesting.
So it all ties together.
Comes full circle.
This guy had one line.
In any case, Balki, so they do this beautiful duet, and it's definitely going.
Album. I want an album of Balki and Larry
Balki
singing.
and Larry duets.
It would be amazing.
Yeah.
A Christmas album.
Croony duets by Balki and Larry. Larry is very excited for Balki. He says, "Balki, you're in love. Congratulations." And he gives him a hug. And Balki asks Larry if it's okay if Carol comes over tonight to study. Larry says, "I guess so. We bachelors have to help each other out. I'll just say a quick hello and make myself scarce so you can be alone, huh?" And he gives Balki the old nudge, nudge, wink, wink, which, as we've learned, Balki does not understand what that means. And he says, "I'm not going to be alone. Carol will be with me." Sweet Balki.
He's got a point. Cut to later that evening in the apartment. And before we continue, Sophia, remember 4 weeks ago when Larry taught Balki how to play baseball and he swung the bat and smashed the lovely red lamp?
Yes.
And remember, we were like, the lamp smashed, right? It's gone. What's sitting there on the side table in the apartment?
The lamp.
Wait a minute.
It's back.
How did it magically return?
But wait a minute. This is the second time it's returned, because before the baseball episode, Balki had sold Larry's furniture, and we saw a woman leave the store with his lamp.
And this isn't a glued back together lamp. He must have a closet full of these lamps, or he just knows where to go to get this lamp.
I don't know. Maybe it was like that French provincial bedroom furniture from Sears.
Possibly.
Maybe it was just a popular lamp that people would buy, and he knew exactly where to get another one because he loved that lamp.
I had to bring this up because it was a plot thread we left dangling like 3 weeks ago. I can't have that. At the apartment, Larry has an elaborate plan for Balki's date. When Larry goes, "When Carol gets here, you'll introduce me. I'll make a little small talk, say what a great guy you are, and then I'll go to the movie. Now, the movie gets out at 10:50. If I get back and you have the curtain drawn, I'll go to the coffee shop and call you. Let it ring once. That'll be your signal that you have exactly 20 minutes to finish any, unfinished business." Got it? He says to Balki. Balki goes, "I had no idea my date would make your life so complicated." Larry goes, "Don't worry about it. Everything makes my life complicated," which is absolutely true, as we have seen.
Balki shows Larry his choice of romantic snacks that he has laid out on platters for this date, and they consist of zingers.
Yes.
Dang-dongs.
Ding-dongs, which would be ding-dongs.
Yeah, these are all like Hostess type packaged junk food. Candy-coated corn. It's kind of like caramel corn, but it's all melted into the shape of a bowl.
Yeah, it's all together in one big ball.
And then he has this whole bowl of, and he says, "I don't know what you call these, but they are little soft drinks, and you can eat the bottle. No deposit, no return."
Balki does his old laughing at his own joke, a shtick, and Larry notices a bowl of wax lips sitting there. Balki goes, "These are my favorite," and he pops one in his mouth, and Larry's like, no, give me the lips. Balki will not give him the lips. Larry has to jab him in the stomach. The lips fly out. It spits out of his mouth. Larry goes, "Believe me, wax lips do not a romantic evening make." At which point Balki pulls out more wax lips from his pocket and puts them in the bowl. But these wax lips and this wax soda bottle. Do you remember
what
these?
is the deal with wax candy?
Do you remember
in the
these
80s?
growing up? I remember these.
I mean, vaguely, barely. I remember that they existed. I don't think I ever tried them or was into them, but what was it? You just chewed on wax?
Yeah. Remember the pharmacy down the street from our apartment, Goldinsons? And they had wax lips. So these little soft drinks Balki has, they're commonly known as wax soda bottles. They were invented by the American Candy Company in 1899, and they're basically little wax bottles with flavored syrups. The idea was you would bite off the top of the wax bottle, drink the syrup, and then chew on the wax like gum. I don't
spit it
know.
out?
I guess like gum you spit out too. So the American Candy Company also gave us wax lips that got really popular because they're funny. They're flavored, also intended to be chewed on. But I didn't understand I understand the
They
soda
are
bottle.
Balki's favorites.
I never understood the appeal of just chewing flavored wax. But I guess that's what bubble gum is. You're just chewing plastic with sweet in it, and then you spit it out.
Weird.
At this point, the doorbell rings. Now, this is one of the few times the doorbell rings to their apartment. Usually, people just knock on the door. You never hear the doorbell ring, and it's Carol. And he goes, "Here's Carol," as he opens the door. And it's another Johnny Carson
reference, which we've heard from him before.
Well, no, that was Larry going, "Here's Larry," when he was crazy. So he's not crazy. He's not doing Jack Nicholson. He's doing Johnny Carson. Balki opens the door, and everyone is shocked at Carol Moseley. I'm talking about Larry is shocked. The audience gasps. I myself.
Did you gasp?
Yes, I was like, wow. I did a Balki, wow. I was like, dang.
Are you surprised? Because there is a blonde bombshell standing there in a very glimmery, fancy blue dress. She's
fancy.
Totally dressed up.
This is not the picture of who I was expecting the way they had set up Carol Moseley, the way he was talking about her. But on the other hand, I was like, what, Balki can't pull this in. Why are we surprised that he's not this smooth of an operator?
I don't think that's why I was surprised. I was surprised because I was expecting a legit study date to write a paper, and she's dressed up like she's going out on the
She's
town.
in high heels and little dangly earrings, and her hair's all up. Carol Moseley is played by Karen Lynn Scott, and we will talk about what she has done in the 80s and 90s at the end of the show.
Side note, when Bronson Pinchot opens the door to let Carol in this scene, one of the snaps on his suspenders comes off, and he has to quickly clip it back in place, which he does seamlessly, and just shows their dedication to doing these scenes in one take.
Isn't that interesting?
This was not a live show, but they did record in front of a live studio audience, and we know from interviews we've watched with them that they like to do a lot of the physical comedy bits in one take so that the audience only saw it once. But this was not a physical comedy bit. This would have been easily redoable, but it was interesting that they kept this in because he just seamlessly put it back on very quickly.
Yeah, you're right. They could have easily just stopped and reset and did a retake.
And done it again, but they didn't.
It's the suspenders. It's the near side to the camera suspenders. It's very clear. Had it been the other side, he may have been able to snap it and you wouldn't notice. But he is a pro, and from theater, if you have a costume malfunction, snap that back on, keep going.
To be honest, I didn't even see it the first time when I went back to watch it. I was like, it totally happens.
Oh, look at that.
He's so smooth with it that I didn't even notice it.
And maybe this episode really starts to build in emotion and sentiment. Maybe they didn't want to squander that.
To disrupt that, right? Balki introduces Larry, and Carol Moseley gets all flirty to Balki. She sort of sniffs in the air, and she says, "Ooh, what is that you're wearing?" And Balki, of course, doesn't understand what she's talking about. And he says, "Well, I'm wearing my shirt and my suspenders and my Spider-Man underwear."
Wait a minute. He has Spider-Man pajamas and Spider-Man underwear.
Huge Spider-Man fan.
Oh, I love Balki.
And Larry is in the background, giving him hand motions, trying to let him that she's talking about his scent, but he's not getting it. Carol gives up. She said, no, I meant your cologne. No wonder all the girls at school are crazy about you. And Balki gets a little shy and embarrassed. He goes, oh. And then he goes, tell me something I don't know.
He's so cute.
So Balki leads Carol to the couch, and Larry comes on the other side and sits on the chair. And Balki says, okay, you come here and sit down. And he puts her on the couch in front of Larry. And he says, and Cousin Larry will make some small talk with you so that he can go to a movie and leave us alone. Which he totally doesn't understand that he's not supposed to say those plans out loud.
And Balki goes to the kitchen. So Larry wants to get to know Carol. Obviously, if Balki's in love, he's got to find out the details. And he's like, oh, so you're in Balki's history class? Carol says, yes. She says, I hate history, but I have to take it to get my high school diploma. And Larry's like, isn't Balki a great guy? Carol says, yeah, but let's talk about you. I hear you're a photographer. And Larry's stammering and goes, yeah, I am. She goes, can you get me into a modeling agency? Oh, boy. We see already what Carol wants. And Larry's, again, he goes, why? He stammers. Before he can even say anything, she goes, nudity is no problem. Gives him the look, and Larry's mouth just drops. His jaw drops. He's speechless. And he goes, Balki? And Balki returns from the kitchen with a tray holding a bottle of 7-Up and some glasses. And he goes, anyone for some cola?
Yeah, Larry is just as flustered by a beautiful woman.
Oh my God, her whole visit is very awkward and tense and weird for this whole episode.
Yeah.
Nudity is no problem. I thought the 7-Up reference was interesting. Do you remember that Uncola campaign?
I do.
On TV?
I do. It ran for a long time.
Very long time. 7-Up came up with this campaign in 1968. It ran till 1998.
Wow.
But in the 80s, it was huge with the Uncola guy, Jeffrey Holder, the bald Jamaican dude who would always be like, the Uncola.
Oh, right.
Drink 7-Up. But it's also weird that they just use the actual product.
Yeah, because in previous episodes, we've seen cans of soda, but they've been nondescript, generic brand colas.
The cereal was called Puff. The Malax bottles have no label on them.
Balki sets the tray of Uncola on the coffee table. Carol says, no thanks. And she stands up. She takes her purse. She said, I'd better be running.
What? Where's she going?
She's leaving already?
They got to write up term paper. What's going on?
Yeah, so Balki reminds her, but Carol, we have to put our notes together so we can start writing our term paper.
Yes.
And Carol goes, I meant to tell you, my mother's in the hospital and she needs me. You understand? And Balki goes, well, of course I do. Your mama in the hospital. So run away, child, and don't look back. And he says, don't worry. I'll put our notes together and next time we'll start writing.
I don't like this, Carol, already. So Carol says, okay, Balki, and leans over and gives him a kiss on the cheek, and she goes, you're the best study partner a girl could have, and I just love you to death. Blech. She goes, love. She reaches into her purse, pulls out a piece of paper, and says, here are my notes. Balki stares at her, making her a little uncomfortable. He goes, and then she goes, okay, well, I better be running. Cab's waiting.
Cab's waiting.
Really, Carol? Wow,
She
Carol.
planned this whole thing. She didn't even plan to stay.
And she just leaves and walks out, and there's kind of an uncomfortable silence as Larry has witnessed this, but then Balki just has his eyes closed and turns to Balki, takes a deep breath and goes, isn't she wonderful? Balki does not seem to see the same Carol we see.
Can we pause for a second? What was her game here? Did she just want to give him the notes, or did she want to ask Larry to connect her with the modeling agency, or both?
I definitely think she was not going to write the notes, and then she did. She only came over because Balki told her cousin's a photographer, because she makes up this lie, clearly on the spot, about her mother being in the hospital.
And the cab's running for whatever hot date she's actually going on.
Yes.
So Larry tries to talk some sense into Balki.
Larry, to his credit, he's trying to be really sensitive and tactful and gentle about this. It's great.
He says, Balki, I can't help noticing that I'm here and she's not. And Balki doesn't get it. He says, of course not. Her mother is in the hospital. And Larry says, well, she looked a little overdressed for a hospital visit, don't you think? And Balki says, well, her mother is probably in a very nice hospital. Oh, Balki. Oh, sweet, innocent Balki.
High-end hospital.
And Larry says, well, it looked to me like she was dressed up for a date with somebody else.
Oh.
Balki's not having it. He said, that's not possible. You heard
Balki.
her. She loves me to death. And then sweet, innocent Balki asks, is love the same thing as love, or is there something wrong with her tongue? And Larry says, of course, yes, there's something wrong with her tongue. All right. It's forked, meaning, of course, she's a liar.
She is the demon. So Larry sits Balki down and tells him a story about a girl he knew back home, like Carol, named Misty. Misty was in his algebra class, and I love this line. He goes, I was very good in algebra. Of course I was. It had nothing to do with life. So Misty, turns out, used Larry to get an A, and he was going around telling everyone how much they were in love, and then she dumped him. He says, it really broke my heart. You see what I'm getting at? He asked Balki. Balki goes, well, of course I do.
Of course I have. Don't be ridiculous.
He says, you don't want me to take algebra. Point well taken.
Larry continues. He's like, I have to get Balki to see what's happening. He follows Balki to the kitchen. Balki, he says, Carol is using you to do her work, and when the class is over, she won't remember your name. And Balki says, wait a minute. Are you saying that Carol is using me to do her work and that when the class is over, she won't remember my name? Larry just stares at Balki for a beat, and then he goes, yes.
I love when he just repeating the same thing back. And
so funny. Such a funny gag. So simple, but funny.
I love this next exchange because Balki is really frustrated. He stares at Larry in shock at this, and then he walks away. He goes, oh, Popo, as he goes in the living room. And Larry goes, what, Popo?
What, Popo? I love that line. What, Popo?
Balki goes, Popo, you haven't had a date in 4 weeks, and then Balki, the immigrant sheep herder, who doesn't even know what fork to eat his soup with, comes home with a beautiful woman, and I think that you're just a little blue with envy.
Larry is, and this whole exchange, Larry is doing two things. One, he's trying to get Balki to see that Carol is scamming him. And two, he's also trying to teach Balki
He's actually correcting him, yes. This time,
he's like, that's green with envy.
Yeah.
And I don't believe I am. It's very back and forth between the two goals. And he says, well, and Balki says, well, I don't think you would have minded so much if I had bring home someone who had been beaten with the ugly rock. And Larry goes, stick, the ugly stick. And I'm just trying to help you.
Oh.
And Balki says, jealous, jealous, jealous. And Larry scoffs at that. He says, me? Jealous? And Balki goes, you got that right, Mr. Lonely Guy. And so Larry gives up. He says, all right, I tried. If you don't want to listen to me, fine. But when she breaks your heart, and she will, just remember, I tried to warn you. And he walks away, and he leaves Balki standing in the living room with his arms crossed defiantly. And that's the end of Act 1.
God, Larry is trying. And I mean, the fact that he's so flustered that he's actually correcting Balki, I think that says a lot. Because he would just not correct those.
Yes, and this also explains why he was trying to flirt with that customer in the store. He hasn't had a date in 4 weeks, apparently.
Oh, there's the tie back. I like it. Okay, Act 2 opens the next evening in the apartment. Balki walks out of his bedroom. He goes, cousin, before I tell you what I'm going to tell you, I want to tell you last night Carol told me she loved me again. Balki says, and Larry goes, oh, she's gone all the way from love to love in 2 weeks. That's real progress.
Real progress.
Cousin Balki says, I want you to like her better because tonight is the last class. And after we hand in our term paper, I'm going to pop the question. What?
And Larry goes, what? Balki, you're going to ask her to marry you?
Balki goes, well, of course not. Don't be ridiculous. I'm going to pop the question.
And Larry goes, that's what pop the question means.
But Balki goes, oh, then I'm not going to do that. Larry goes, what is it on Happy Days where reruns where Richie Cunningham gives his girl a class ring? Larry goes, that's going steady. And Balki goes, oh, that's what I'm going to do.
And so Larry's like, all right, fine, whatever. It's your life and it's your class ring. And then he realizes, he's like, wait a minute, you don't have a class ring. And Balki returns to the couch with a piece of jewelry. It is his great-grand-nana's emerald brooch.
Oh, my God.
Larry's like, oh, my God, is that real? And he says, well, of course it is. It's been in his family for 200 years,
Whoa.
and every firstborn Bartakama's son has to give it to the woman who steals his heart.
Oh, my God. And Larry's thinking what we're all thinking at this point.
Yes.
You're going to give that to Carol?
Do not give that to
Not
Carol.
a Balki goes, you don't think she'll like it? Larry goes, oh, she'll love it. She'll love it all the way to the pawn shop. Give me that. And Balki pulls away. Larry's like, no, Balki. give me that pin. And then Larry tries a different tactic. He goes, I just want to see it. I've heard so much about it. Balki goes, I just mentioned it for the first time. He goes, yes, well, that's what I heard so much about. And then Larry he goes real politely. He goes, may I see it, please? I will give it right back. And he smiles and he bats his eyelashes. Balki goes, do you promise? Larry says, I promise, in the most sincere way. And Balki gives it to Larry, at which point he snatches it and jumps back and goes, are you crazy?
Yeah, he runs away, leading to a classic Balki Larry chase scene around the apartment.
You got to chase around the couch, at least, yeah.
Around the couch. He goes, are you crazy? Balki jumps over the couch, chases Larry to the closet. You're going to give a family heirloom to that barracuda?
Barracuda, that's what she is.
Balki says, you tricked Balki. And Larry rolls right with it. You're darn right I tricked Balki. And Balki advances on Larry, who holds up a chair. He lifts up a chair
like
to
a lion
block
tamer
in front of him. Yeah, like a lion tamer. And Balki's yelling, give me Nana's pin. And Larry says, no, I won't give you Nana's pin. I'm going to put in a safe deposit box until you grow up.
Larry now is squeezing the pin so hard that he goes, ow, ow. And the pin is sticking up in his hand. And then for a moment, everyone lets their guard down. Balki gently helps him remove it. And then Larry snatches again, tries to run off, at which point Balki grabs Larry and lifts him off the ground.
Around the waist, yeah.
Around the waist. And Larry's legs are just running and spinning. And this is the clip that's in the opening credits scene, which I was like,
that we've been waiting for.
I've been waiting for the scene. Because you just imagine that sound of Fred Flintstone running the cartoon noise of him with his legs just going. Balki does set Larry down, and Larry runs away, hiding around the corner of the wall.
Balki says, give me that pin. Larry says, no. He's insistent. I can't stop you from asking Carol to go steady, but just let me keep the pin for a day. If you ask her to go steady and she says yes, then I'll give you back the pin with my apologies and my blessing.
That's fair.
That's very fair. I think that's very reasonable. Balki says, cousin, she loves me. And he gives up on the pin. He goes to the closet to get his coat, and he's very sad and disheartened and a little offended.
Yes.
Says, I don't know why you can't believe that. I don't need the pin, and I don't need your apology. I want your blessing.
Oh. And then Larry very gently goes, honest to God, I hope I am wrong about Carol, as Balki leaves. And that's the end of a short act 2. But man, I'm glad Larry took that pin, because this was a good move. Will this be the first time Larry is right in an episode of Perfect Strangers?
Act 3, it's later that evening, and suddenly Jennifer is in the apartment with Larry, hanging out as friends. I don't know. Is this a date? Are they friends? Did we just jump ahead that she lives in the building now?
He hasn't been dating in weeks. We know that.
4
that's
weeks.
Been established.
But Jennifer's there. And what happened to the other woman who's usually his friend hanging out?
Susan. I think Susan is done. I think
Susan's done. No explanation. Now it's Jennifer.
Gone. I wonder if Jennifer and Susan ever ran into each other on the street. Would have been awkward.
And if Jennifer's around, doesn't that mean that Marianne's also around? And Balki's already been on a date with Marianne.
Well, we'll get into that later. But this whole episode is a great setup for why Marianne is a better match with Balki. So Larry is anticipating Balki returning home in complete heartbreak, and he has comfort foods waiting for him, like the good friend that he is. Larry goes, I'll comfort him. I've got some tissues. The ice cream will cheer him up a little, and then he'll sleep a dreamless sleep with his arms around Dimitri. And Jennifer goes, gosh, you're a great friend, throws her arms around Larry. And then Larry just ruins a perfectly good moment where he turns and says to her, I can be more than a friend, Jennifer.
Gross.
Which makes her a little bit uncomfortable. Larry, you just ruined a good moment.
Went too far, Larry.
A little much, Appleton. Also, you'll notice Dimitri is there, and he's wearing wax lips. I love it.
He's got Dimitri on the table next to the ice cream. All the things that comfort Balki. Dimitri and wax lips is even better.
That's hilarious.
So just then, as they're preparing for a heartbroken Balki to come home, Balki bursts through the front door singing Chuck Berry's Carol.
Oh, boy.
And dancing and playing air guitar.
Just like Chuck Berry.
He's dancing all over the apartment, Chuck Berry style. And he sees the items on the table and he goes, wax lips, let's party. And he continues to sing and dance. He's very happy. He's joyful. And Jennifer goes, you were right. to Larry. She goes, "You were right. He's devastated."
Yeah, not what they were expecting.
And then she leaves. Balki grabs Larry at one point and like tilts him over and uses him as a guitar.
He plays him like a guitar. It's great.
And then he like throws him to the side, and Larry goes flying over the desk that's in the corner there by the closet. And he dances over to the table. He's like, "Oh, macadamia nut ice cream, my favorite. But I'm too excited to eat." And Larry's like, "What happened tonight?" And Balki says, "Not what you thought was going to happen." Larry goes, "She didn't break up with you?" And Balki's like, "No."
Oh, my God. Larry is confused, just like I was. We need clarification. Larry goes, "You asked Carol Mosley, the same girl that was here 2 weeks ago, to go steady with you. And she said yes." He asks in disbelief. Balki goes, "You ain't just whistling Dixie cups." That's there you go. He's combining two things.
Whistling Dixie and Dixie cups.
Little Dixie cups in a perfect Balki way. So Larry may have been wrong. Is it possible? Balki goes, "Now, is there something you'd like to crawl over here and say?" Larry goes, "Well, Balki, what can I say?" He reaches in his pocket, pulls out his grand nana's 200-year-old pin. He goes, "I made a big mistake. I am sorry. Here, please give this to Carol with my blessing." Balki goes, "Cousin, it's okay. I'm too happy to be mad." He hops back over the couch, sits down. Carol was so beautiful. The way she tilted her head to the side after I asked her to go steady and said, "You and me go steady? That's cute." And then she was so happy that she burst out laughing.
Oh,
wait a minute.
Balki.
This doesn't sound right.
So now it all starts to make sense to Larry and to us as the audience. And Larry is concerned again. He asks Balki specifically, how did she laugh?
This is so
was
funny.
it like, and then Larry goes, was it like, and he does this little girly, coyish laugh. And he goes, or was it like, ha, 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 ha. And he's like pointing his finger.
You almost did a Nelson laugh from The Simpsons. And then Balki goes, he goes, "What was that first one again?"
And Larry repeats, and Balki says, "Well, it was more like the second one, but she don't point."
She don't point.
Why do you ask? And Larry has another follow-up question just to like make sure he's got the situation understood. He asks Balki if they had made any plans for the future after he asked her to go steady. And Balki says, "She told me that she will be very busy looking for a job and also for a new apartment because she's moving out of the building called Jack's Place."
Uh-oh.
Oh, Balki.
This is going to get rough.
Larry goes, and was she too busy to get together soon? And Balki says, yes. And did she also say she would be getting a new phone number and she'll call you when she gets the new number? And Balki says, "Get out of the city. You were listening."
So that. First of all, that "get out of the city" is a huge line from the show. It is the first time he says that. And also now, Sophia, it's part of our soundboard.
Get out of the city.
Because I can think of many times we're going to need to use that. But people to this day still go, get out of the city. Just like Vegas, you got "get out of the city" has lasted. So it's come to the point that Larry has some hard truths to tell Balki that it's going to hurt him. This is going to be rough. He explains to Balki that when a woman says she's too busy, that's her way of putting you off. And then he's very gentle about this. He goes, when she says she's getting a new phone, she has no intention of giving you the number. And Jack's Place is not the name of a building. It's Jack's Place. And Balki goes, "Well, cousin, she don't say any of those things." Larry goes, "Not in those words, but that's what she meant."
And poor Balki just gets more upset by all this. And he says,
not getting it.
"Why are you doing this again? Why can't you just be happy for me? What you're saying is not true." And Larry says, "Balki, if you don't believe me, then just call her yourself." So Balki goes, fine. He gets up, he goes to the phone, he makes the call, and this is where it starts to get really sad.
This is so brutal to watch.
So we're just hearing the conversation from Balki's side. He goes, "Hello?" And he looks confused, and he goes, "Who is this?" And then he looks confused, and then he goes, "Jack, may I speak to Carol, please?"
Oh, God, Jack answered the phone.
Jack answered the phone,
my
and
God.
Balki says, "I think her brother's probably named Jack."
Just won't believe it. He's still trying to convince himself that this is not true, Balki. I'm so sorry.
And then we hear the rest of Balki's side of the conversation, and he's like, "Oh yeah," he's like, "Do you want to go out with me?" "Oh yeah, I remember you said you were busy, but it's Saturday." And then he gets very sad. His face goes still, and the conversation ends with him saying, "Oh, I see. Okay, goodbye, Carol. I hope you have a nice life too."
Oh my God, he is
She said,
on.
"Have a nice life,
Balki. It was great knowing you. Thanks for the term paper. Me and Jack are gonna go to Vegas. Jeez,
Vegas.
I don't like this. So, wow, and he is on the verge of tears, and now it's lesson time. How do you know it's lesson time? Because there's sad music playing.
The sad lesson time music. Lesson time music is not always sad, but
No.
in this episode, it's sad.
Yeah, this one needed to be sad.
Balki is just looking completely shocked and heartbroken, and he hangs up the phone slowly. And Larry gets up. He brings him a box of tissues.
It's a good move as a friend.
And Balki is just frozen there by the phone. He says, Jack is not her brother. And he's trying to hold back tears. He realizes everything Larry's been saying is true. He says, I made a fool of myself. You tried to warn me and I wouldn't listen. And Larry's like, hey, you fell in love. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes when you're in love, you can't think straight. Take my word for it. The pain will go away. And Balki goes, when?
Whoa.
This is heartbreaking. And Larry says, well, not for a long time,
He's
but
right.
it will go away.
It is not. Time is the only thing that can heal the heartbreak. As Larry takes Balki to the couch, Larry stops to get the ice cream and 2 spoons and sits next to Balki. And Balki just he can't take it. He's like, I am never going to fall in love again. And Larry goes, sure you will. Balki says, no, I won't. He starts crying. He says, I don't want to. It hurts so much. And I am in tears. I am legit. I watched this like the second or third time. I was like just zoned into his emotions. And I was like, oh my God, this is so, I was in tears. I felt so bad.
I mean, yeah, a first heartbreak hurts, but usually when you see it on TV, it's like a younger character, right?
Well, we'll get into that. The first heartbreak, he's experiencing something you may have gone through as a teenager or a preteen, but he's going through it as an adult. Larry,
I guess he's never been in love.
I guess not. I mean, listen, this is an argument for arranged marriages, all right? That's all I'm saying. This is why you get arranged marriage.
You could still have heartbreak in an arranged marriage.
But Larry goes, hey, I know it hurts, but Carol was just not the right girl for you. She wasn't good enough for you. And somewhere out there is somebody who's right for you. It's Marianne, by the way. Somebody who's worthy to wear your Nana's brooch. Does he give Marianne the brooch? I don't know.
We'll find out.
And Larry goes, you'll fall in love with her and she'll fall in love with you and you'll forget about all the Carols in the world. And Balki is just crying. And he goes, I'm glad you're here. And they embrace and I start crying even more at this point.
I was still waiting for some like funny punchline at the end of this, but in fact, it just ends very on this emotional, heartfelt moment. Larry takes a big spoonful of ice cream. He's sitting there with like the whole bucket of ice cream in front of him. He takes a big spoonful. He hands it to Balki. He's like, here. And Balki takes it. And Larry goes, I bought 4 gallons, which is kind of like the last laugh point of the episode. Balki's crying and laughing. And then they sit and the camera pans out the window, the fire escape window. And we see inside the apartment, they're on the couch eating ice cream. There's a fire in the fireplace behind them. It's very nice. And roll credits.
So let's start with that last scene. This is like the only time that the episode ends with the camera panning back outside, but it really does punctuate this warm moment, this connection, this kind of deeply emotional episode. And wow, this was almost like, you had those, here's a very special episode of Different Strokes. Next week.
Yeah.
Not a lot of laughs, very emotional, very serious.
Very emotional. And also a bit unexpected because you would think like up until this point from the beginning of this show, we've seen Larry like be unreasonable about women. Like, I need her. I want her. I'm going to spend the rest of my life with her. But now he's the one that's very like balanced and reasonable and like rational and explaining heartbreak to to Balki.
And Larry was right, and Balki is the only one who has a lesson this time. So, the Vegas episode, it was the other way around.
Yeah, so we're going back and forth.
I love it. Sometimes Larry is right based on the situation, but man, do I hate Carol Mosley. I hate her so much. I was so mad that she made Balki feel that way because, I've been there. People have been there. People that have been like this. You are mad at the people that make your friends hurt and have heartbreak, and then when it happens to you, it just reminds me of the time when I was younger, and the minute a girl pays attention to you, you just go crazy because you think she loves you, but you're young and immature.
You're like, she loves me.
And you pick flowers and you skip through the fields, but
trust me, it's not only when you're young. There are plenty of men who think that well into adulthood, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit.
That happens, but later. I kind of love the shift of this episode being so emotional.
Yeah, it was very lovely. And we also see, with the shifting of the lessons learned from episode to episode, one episode, Larry has lessons. The next episode, Balki has lessons. What we're seeing is this relationship building, and in fact, they need each other.
Yeah.
And they're developing as people because the other one's in their life.
And again, if you think about Marianne and how sweet and innocent and sincere she is, that's the perfect match. That's the perfect. And after this, we realize that he realizes that. I got some interesting facts from this episode. Balki refers to the Happy Days rerun and Richie Cunningham. It's not the last time they're going to reference this sitcom, because Bob Boyette and Paula Roth both worked on Happy Days before they worked Perfect Strangers.
And tell me about Carol Mosley. She looked very familiar to me.
Carol Mosley, played by one Karen Lynn Scott. She is known for a lot of appearances in a lot of TV shows from the late 80s and early 90s. For example, Perfect Strangers is her first credit, but she went on to be in Sledgehammer, which, if there's a listener out there that has watched Sledgehammer and remembers, I used to love this show. It is a total obscure show about a cop who is just over the top. Write in danceandjoypod@gmail, because I love Sledgehammer. I want to find somebody else who remembers Sledgehammer. Anyway, she showed up on Mama's Family, Just the 10 of Us, Hardball, Herman's Head, which was another great show.
Oh, right. I remember Herman's
The Larry Sanders Show. Seinfeld. She was Susie in the Bottle Deposit episode. Which was the bottle? Hold on. Which was the bottle? A garage mechanic steals Jerry's car. Elaine tries to win Jay Peterman's JFK presidential golf clubs. George is asked to work on a mysterious assignment. Kramer and Newman run a recycling scam. Oh, that's when they were driving around. Who was Susie?
I think I definitely recognized her from Seinfeld.
Boy Meets World. She did Married
familiar.
with Children, Martin, Step by Step,
Boy Meets World.
Unhappily Ever After, Drew Carey Show.
Those, yeah.
The most recent credit is from 2002, Hidden Hills. But
she's one of those faces. You're like, oh, she's been in a lot of things.
You're like, oh, that girl. She's been in everything.
Okay, so let's talk about some of our favorite Balki and Larryisms, our favorite catchphrases. Don't be ridiculous is said twice in this episode.
That's a good number of times.
We have Balki saying, tell me something I don't know, which I'm not sure that's going to be a repeat thing, but it's a funny line.
Yeah.
We have a very funny "Oh Popo, what Popo?"
I love that.
I love it.
Popo.
You know what I love about that is that Larry has become so accepting of having Balki in his life that he just rolls with the Meposian phrases, and now he's mixing English and Meposian, which I love. I love that.
He understands the syntax of the Meposian.
He understands the sentiment. Yeah. And he's like, "What Popo?"
That was great.
You tricked Balki. And again, there's another instance where Larry just rolls with it. Of course I tricked Balki.
Of course I tricked Balki. Third person. I don't think so. And of course,
Get out of the city!
that one is a big one.
That one we'll see again. Okay. Now it's time for Perfect Strangers Today, which is the segment of our podcast when we talk about if this story were to happen today, how would things be different?
Yes, and how do people treat people horribly now in terms of relationships? How do people get away with using people? I feel like this still happens, and I don't think it's just women. Men also, who are very attractive, will take advantage of women, just the way an attractive woman take advantage of a man.
Okay, so let's pause that for a second. First of all, Balki would be ghosted, maybe.
Ghosted.
If this was happening today, he'd be talking to women online, and he'd have like a little bit of an exchange, and he'd be like, "Oh, she loves me. We met online 2 weeks ago. She loves me."
And then block everything.
And
he would
then-
get blocked.
And then he'd be ghosted, and he would still believe that she loves him, and she's make excuses for why she hasn't been writing him back. And then Balki would probably see her with some other dude on her Instagram post and be heartbroken.
That is the problem with love and social media, especially if you're really jealous, because pictures can look like whatever, and you don't know what's going on. And social media has made this a lot more stalkery, but a lot more crazy.
And then Carol's Facebook status would say something like it's complicated,
Carol,
and Balki would
it's complicated.
Make
What do you mean?
for that.
What that mean, Carol?
Another thing I thought was, you remember when Larry's like, okay, I will, if the curtains are drawn, I'll go to the coffee shop, let the phone ring once. So now it would just be text messages.
Yes.
He'd be like, should I come home? Should I not come home? How's it going?
Is there an eggplant emoji or no eggplant?
Yeah, exactly.
So, but that's the old, also, remember the old trope is like leave a tie on the
sock
door,
on the
a sock
door,
if something's going on, you leave something on the doorknob. But no, you don't have to do that. You just put
you don't have to do that anymore.
You
It's
send
just,
a text.
You could just like send a text message. Don't come home.
Yeah.
Okay, so now here's what I want to
Those
talk
are two
about.
good ones so far.
I happen to be in this present moment on a bit of a binge, which is a total time suck and not good for my productivity
Whatever.
the rest of my life at all.
It's 2020.
Watching not even
Anything good?
a trashy TLC reality show, but a spin-off of a trashy TLC reality show. The show, of course, is the very popular 90 Day Fiancé. Many people watch it
It's
religiously.
fantastic.
I have currently gotten sucked into. So 90 Day Fiancé has is a big franchise now. There's a lot of spin-off
For someone who
shows.
doesn't know, what is the gist of the show?
The gist of 90 Day Fiancé is Americans who are engaged to foreigners, and they bring their foreign fiancés over to America on a K-1 fiancé visa, and they have 90 days in which they must get married
To decide
in order
if they
to
want to get married.
stay in the country. Yeah.
Don't always.
No, to actually get married, not only decide.
Oh.
But so this show has become wildly popular. I do believe a lot of it is made up now and scripted because it's just very popular on TLC, and they got to keep it going.
Yeah.
But people watch this show and get really into it, and there's like huge Reddit communities that talk about everything. But there's all these spin-off shows, and the one that I've gotten sucked into is called Before the 90 Days. And the premise of this show, it's the same couples that later appear on 90 Day Fiancé,
Yes.
but it's before the 90 days. It's when the Americans meet their long-distance love interest for the first time. They're already calling them boyfriend and girlfriend.
Oh
They're
my God.
already saying they're in love. In a lot of these stories, they're like, oh, we've been talking online for 2 months and we're in love and I want to go over there and propose to her or him or whatever
Wow.
it is. And again, I do believe a lot of these stories are scripted, maybe not all of them, but it's funny that I've been binging this show and this episode of Perfect Strangers came up because it's the same thing, but usually the flip in Perfect Strangers is that Balki is the foreigner and he's fallen in love with an American who's trying to scam him.
Yeah.
On Before the 90 Days, it's
the other way around.
Mostly the opposite.
Yeah.
It's like some American who's given up on love for, I won't say my opinions on these people, but they've given up on love for whatever reasons, whether they're women or men or whatever.
they're desperate.
In America.
Yeah.
And so they've gone on these, a lot of times it's these international dating websites or like Colombian Cupid or Filipino Cupid or whatever. And they very specific dating sites for whatever their interests may be. And they start talking to people on the other end, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes from situations of dire poverty. And then they're like, but she loves me, but he loves me. There's often an age gap, a significant age gap.
Yeah.
And their friends try to talk them out of it on the show, just the same way Larry did. They're like,
Are
you've
you sure?
been talking to this woman for
You
2
just met
months.
her.
Like, you're going to go propose to her?
Really?
You haven't even met her.
pop
Or
the
like,
question.
you haven't met this guy in person and you think you're in love and all this stuff. And it's very interesting because it's real stuff that happens, maybe real, maybe fake, maybe a mix. But it's very infuriating to watch. Everyone on there is like,
you just want to grab them and shake them, and be like, "What are you
what
doing?
is wrong with you?" Yeah, and a lot of they all want something, and some of it is like very blatant.
Yeah.
But the people are so love struck.
They don't care.
Like Balki was,
do
that they don't see it, and they try to reason away from it. Like people literally get stood up. They fly across the world, and the other person doesn't show up, or they're catfished, and they're like, "Oh, but she, I'm going to try again. Maybe something was wrong."
The city.
I will admit to watching the first season of 90 Day Fiancé, and I remember there was this smoking hot Brazilian girl, and
Pow.
yes, and the dude was way out of her league.
Yeah.
He was
So
a
it's
total
often like
schlub,
that.
and I was like, this girl, she's gonna get famous and get a modeling career and dump him.
She, in fact, is.
Yeah.
They're still together, though.
Oh, they are? What? Get out.
Yeah, if you look on their
No.
Instagram, they have kids.
No.
She is,
Get out
however,
of
a
the
model
city.
in America.
Wow,
and,
she stayed with that dude? Get out of here. Wow.
Yeah,
all
they
right. Well,
did.
I was wrong. I didn't give her enough credit.
Look, I mean, like, are they in love? Maybe. All points for love, but do they also want to come to the United States? Yeah.
Also,
absolutely.
the concept of a gold digger, quote unquote, it's kind of
but
a
you know
similar
what?
thing,
In
but
these
it's not.
situations, I only will judge the Americans, right? Like the Americans believe in love, and I'll give them points for that. They just are looking for love, and they're like, hopeless romantics. Fine. I don't place blame on the foreigners because they're just trying to get a better life, and they're doing what they can. And if they're successful convincing somebody that they love them, then
I guess
they're just good at what they're
If the
doing.
Americans
And
happy with the arrangement, then that's the problem.
a lot of them are.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. I mean, yeah, it's so fascinating.
It's very fascinating. But
yeah.
if you read the message boards, a lot of it is scripted now by TLC for the
That happens.
drama
They always
or
start. They
whatever.
start out real, and then you just run out of steam, and you got to come up with.
Anyway, we've digressed. I'm sure there are many
What were we
podcasts
talking
about
about?
90 Day Fiancé.
What about Love
that
Is
we can-
Blind? Did you watch that one? It kind of reminded me of that too.
I have not watched
On
Love
Netflix,
Is Blind.
where you
yet,
just
but-
you're in a pod, and you just hear the other person's voice, and then
right.
by the end of it, they're like, "We're getting married," and they fall into love just
Oh
by
my
talking to
gosh.
each other without seeing each other. Good observations, though. Definitely 90 Day Fiancé. This would have been an episode if this if Perfect Strangers happened today.
If Perfect Strangers happened today, also, how do people deal with heartbreak today? Heartbreak, is timeless. It still hurts just as much as it did in '86.
You still use ice cream for comfort.
You still use ice cream.
Yes.
It's Ben and Jerry's.
Yes.
You really indulgent ice
Yeah,
cream.
ice cream always fixes everything.
You might have a rebound relationship right away.
Yeah.
They didn't really cover rebound relationships in the show. They didn't.
You
have
just
time.
swipe right on the next picture. That's what you do. I don't know.
Or you troll them on social media,
Yeah.
or stalk them on social media, or block them altogether to spare yourself.
That's another
from more
scary thing you don't
pain.
think about is that if you really hurt someone, like they could snap and do a lot of public
They could.
damage on the internet
They could.
these days. So you got to
You'd
be
have
careful.
to block them right
You
away.
gotta
Yeah,
block them.
but-
You have to change your whole. Just delete your account. Get a new one. They'll still find
yeah,
you.
and I know people who have had to do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right. Good Perfect Strangers Today segment. I'm glad you, I couldn't think of anything, and those are great. We have a couple of shout outs. Sophia, we both saw separate shout outs from the same person on different platforms.
Yes. So this person, listener at Queen of No Chill
Yeah.
on Twitter and on Instagram. But on Twitter, Queen of No Chill, we love you for your Twitter handle, or your name. Your handle is Queen of No Chill. The name on Twitter is Fatty Gucci Belt Buckle. Best Twitter name
It
ever.
just rolls off the tongue. Fatty Gucci Belt Buckle.
Fatty Gucci
You guys
Belt
seen
Buckle.
Fatty Gucci Belt Buckle? I just saw Fatty Gucci Belt Buckle all down at the store. It was crazy.
Anyway, on Twitter, Queen of No Chill, a.k.a. Fatty Gucci Belt
Fatty
Buckle,
Gucci Belt
says,
Buckle.
at Dance of Joy Pod, just discovered this and I'm listening and loving. Glad I
Yeah.
found it fairly early and I'm not too far behind. Thank you so much, Queen of No Chill. Queen of No Chill also reached out to us on Instagram, actually reposted one of our posts
Nice.
and said, okay, I found a Perfect Strangers podcast where they're recapping every episode and my hope is restored. Thank you at Soph Javid and your brother. Thank you, Queen of No Chill.
Fatty
Thank
Gucci
you for
Belt
the
Buckle.
share.
I've just been walking around all day going, hey, fatty Gucci belt buckle.
Fatty Gucci belt buckle.
I love
Everyone
it.
go follow at Queen of No Chill. Thank you so much for writing in.
Poetry, that fatty Gucci belt buckle. And that's going to take us to the end of the show. Next week, the laughs will return, listener. We had a nice little emotional cry. We all need a good cry once in a while. We did that. Next week, the boys will be babysitting.
Oh, boy.
What could go wrong there?
220-something bachelors babysitting.
And we're going to see the return of Gina. Remember Gina and the little baby?
Gina, she had a baby in
the
their
baby
car.
that was born in the back of Larry's Mustang is coming back on the show.
Oh, that's good.
Amazing.
Some continuity.
Yes.
If you enjoyed our show, thank you so much. Please visit us at danceofjoypod.com for all the links. We're on all the podcast apps. Please follow us, subscribe, leave us a rating, give us a review in Apple Podcasts. We would really appreciate it.
You can get in touch when you visit danceofjoypod.com, our website. In the lower right, there's a little microphone icon. If you click that, you can send us your best Balki impression. You could give us one of these.
Cousins should joke more.
Yes, they should.
And we'll play it on the show. But that's how you can send us your voice, or just email us, danceofjoypod@gmail.com, especially if you used to watch the show Sledgehammer. I want to hear from you.
You can also find all the links to our social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We're at danceofjoypod. The links are all there on the website. And most importantly, if you're enjoying our show, please share it with a friend, retweet, repost, get the word out. We want everyone to listen to us and also to come to love and enjoy Perfect Strangers.
Word of mouth is like the best way to share a podcast you love. All right, everyone, stand up, do some flexes, do some stretches. We're all going to do the dance of joy. Get up right now, do the dance of joy with us. Thanks for listening. We will check you next week.
Now we are so happy we do the dance of joy.
Die, 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 die. Hey, hey,
Hey, hey, hey, hey, hey, hey.